led by Chairman McGovern and Senator Merkley, to suspend sales of munitions to Hong Kong police force. So there are two bills that we'll be signing here today. Sadly, without question, China's promise to full autonomy for Hong Kong has been utterly broken. For years, the world has seen the people of Hong Kong be increasingly denied their full autonomy and faced with a cruel crackdown on their freedoms. Most recently, the violent attacks against students at Hong Kong Polytechnic University have shocked us all. In America, if America does not speak up for human rights in China because of commercial issues, we lose all moral authority to speak about human rights anywhere in the world. With these bills, we say America stands on the side of freedom and justice. America stands with the freedom-loving people of Hong Kong. And we've been doing this, Mr. Smith and I, for 3 decades now, with Frank Wolf and others over time. So we have seen, worked with now a third generation of democracy leaders. It started with Martin Lee and way back when, right after Tiananmen Square, and then to this century, with another generation of leaders, and now with Jason Wong, Nathan Law, and others there. What's interesting is, though, all 3 generations are still working on the issue, as are we. So for us, this is really a very, very proud day. And proud I am to welcome back to the House side a member of the United States Senate, the Democratic leader. We take great pride in his leadership and service in the House. We take great pride in his leadership and service in the Senate. Leader Schumer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and it's always good to be back here on the House side. You always seem to be here under your leadership doing great things. I want to thank my colleague, Senator Merkley, who is here, who played an important part in this legislation. On our side as well, Senators Cardin and Menendez, as well as their colleagues on the Foreign Relations Committee as well. Senator Rubio, Senator Cornyn, one other, Senator Risch. Thank you. So let me just say this. To President Xi, this resolution is what America thinks of you and your policies towards the people in Hong Kong and also towards the Uyghurs in Northwest China and your oppressive rule throughout. Don't take any word of the president that everything's okay. It is not. And what you're doing in Hong Kong and elsewhere damages your standing dramatically here in America and throughout the world. The repression of freedom, the repression of thought, never serves a country or a leader well. Never. And it may give you some temporary solace that your brute force can push people around. But ultimately, the people who demand freedom will prevail. So President Xi, this resolution is what America thinks. Don't believe what President Trump whispers in your ear. This is what America thinks. It is now my honor to call on the chairman of the Rules Committee, someone I was proud to serve alongside of in the House briefly, Congressman McGovern. Thank you. Well, first of all, let me thank Leader Schumer. Let me also thank especially Speaker Pelosi, who has been so determined in standing up for human rights for people who are oppressed in China and in Hong Kong. And I admire her leadership very much. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for her leadership. And the House and the Senate have made a statement that we stand with the protesters in Hong Kong. We stand with those who are being oppressed by the government of Beijing. I also want to thank my colleagues, Congressman Chris Smith, for his leadership on this and so many other issues. I want to thank Chairman Engel and Ranking Member McCall for their work, Senator Merkley, and others who have been part of this effort. Today is a great day for human rights, and it's a great day for democracy. With the passage of this bill, Congress is sending a clear and unmistakable message to Beijing. We will not stand idly by while the Chinese government stifles free expression and tightens their grip on Hong Kong. If the United States of America stands for anything, it ought to stand out loud and foursquare for human rights. And that's exactly what the bills that we are signing here today do. All of us are proud of the overwhelming and bipartisan support this legislation received on the floor.
We're living in a very polarized time. It's hard to get Democrats and Republicans to agree on what to have for lunch, never mind on important pieces of legislation, but we have come together on this legislation. I urge the President to sign this bill right away so that the people of Hong Kong know that the United States does not hesitate to stand with them in their struggle for a democratic future. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the staff of the Congressional Executive Commission on China, who have been so instrumental in putting this legislation together and so many other important human rights bills. So again, I thank everybody for their support for this, and I look forward to the President, who I think has been too silent on this issue for too long, to sign the bill. And we look forward to that. Thank you. And at this point, I'm proud to introduce my colleague, Congressman Chris Smith of New Jersey, who has been an incredible leader on this and so many other issues.
Thank you very much. Really been a pleasure to work with you. And Speaker Pelosi, 5 years ago, almost to the day, I introduced the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. It's taken 5 years to get to this point. Speaker Pelosi was the original co-sponsor of that legislation. I'm going to thank her for that leadership. We have worked together for years on combating human rights abuse in China, and it has gotten, as we all know, demonstrably worse under Xi Jinping. His dictatorship, what he's doing to the Muslim Uyghurs, is unconscionable. What he has done in the area of religious persecution, and frankly, this President Trump has done much on combating human trafficking in China, as well as the religious freedom issue. I wrote those laws, so I know that for a fact. And now we're calling on the President to continue that concern for human rights and sign this bill into law. Xi Jinping said last month, and this is ominous, that if things don't change, if people don't cower to his dictatorship, to the jackboots of his troops, and that includes the Hong Kong police, that they will crush bodies and shatter bones. We have all the warnings, the harbinger of what we saw prior to Tiananmen Square. Tiananmen Square, both the Republicans and the Democrats looked askance in large measure, not the Speaker, and I, and Frank Wolf and others. We felt there should have been a robust response. We now have an opportunity with the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act to really change what happens in Hong Kong. We all know that China is an export economy. Without exports, they implode economically. And certainly Hong Kong is a very vital part of that ability for them to continue growing their economy. This legislation, especially the first section that directs the Secretary of State to do that review as to whether or not the special privileges that are afforded to Hong Kong continue, to me, that is the key. If they lose that because of their deterioration in respecting autonomy and human rights, fundamental human rights, I believe this will be a catastrophic blow to the economy of China. Xi Jinping should understand that. We're not kidding. We've spoken in a totally bipartisan way with this legislation, with its passage. One vote against in the U.S. House, unanimous in the United States Senate, and we're calling on the President, and I believe because he has been so right on trafficking and so right on religious freedom in China, that he will do the right thing and he will sign it.
For 6 months, we've watched the people of Hong Kong take the streets and stand for democracy. And for 6 months, we've seen them met by the Hong Kong police force using rubber bullets and tear gas and pepper spray and batons and water cannons. Today, with the passage of these two bills, the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act and the Protect Hong Kong Act, we stand with the people of Hong Kong. We stand for democracy and human rights. We stand with the students who have said they would rather die than live without democracy. We stand with those who have faced meters apart to the Hong Kong police and said, do not assault us, for we stand for the future of our people. So I'm just delighted to be part of the hard work done in the House, in the Senate, by Democrats and Republicans together. It's way past time that America stand strongly with the people of Hong Kong and let them hear us today, gathered together to say, we stand with you. Let the bells of freedom ring in Hong Kong.
Let me just thank everyone here involved with this legislation. And I want to thank Speaker Pelosi for putting this on the floor. And as you mentioned, moral authority. This is a human rights issue. And the American people, through their representatives, have spoken loud and clear. And we did this together. We don't stand here today as Republicans or Democrats, but as Americans united in our strong support for the people of Hong Kong. And this bill sends a clear message to China that there will be consequences for their ruthless and brutal actions in Hong Kong. We will not sit on the sidelines as the Chinese Communist Party enriches herself and oppresses her own people. Hong Kong may be half a world away, but they are standing up for our American freedoms and values. The protesters are risking their lives as we speak on the front lines of a global struggle against a dangerous communist party that has its eyes set on growing its influences near and far. They even tried to threaten the United States Congress into withdrawing this bill. But America does not back down to the communists. This is a battle between democracy versus dictatorship, liberty versus tyranny, and freedom versus oppression. We heard the people of Hong Kong singing our national anthem and flying our American flag. We've also heard, we hear you. To those watching today, we hear you and we are listening to you. And we see your social media and it's making a difference. Keep it up because we are 100% behind you and we are proud to help answer your call here today. Thank you. And Speaker Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Ranking Member McCall. You and Chairman Elliot Engel have been so instrumental in giving us this opportunity, bringing this legislation to the floor. We thank you, and we thank the distinguished Chairman, Mr. Engel. And now, with that, I have the pleasure of signing the legislation. And doing so, we will enroll the legislation as passed by the House and the Senate, and we will send them immediately, the bills immediately, to the President of the United States. And with strong bipartisan votes, unanimous in the Senate, unanimous on one bill in the House, except 400 and something to 1 on another bill. It doesn't get any, it hardly gets any better than that. We're very proud. It's, again, a good day. It's a day of mutual respect for democratic freedoms, the courage of the young people there to speak out, and also a day of great bipartisanship in the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. We send that message from the Congress to the President. That, the arm. I didn't. Okay, now this is the second bill. Mr. Schumer suggested I add D'Alessandro in there so I can use more pens.
President Smith.
Not ready for there.
Thank you all very much again for your leadership. Thank you so much. We will send you the accompanying documentation to go with this. Thank you all too.